Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Chewing the Fat. My name's Emma Nedov. I'm one of the Simpler Health coaches, and here with me today is one of my beautiful clients, who's also one of my best friends, Bryney Conlan, who participated in the Simpler Health protocol. Oh my gosh, what, like a year ago?
Yeah, almost a year ago. It was over Christmas as well.
Well,
So,
also don't mind the sun. Just like I have to be really
oh,
mindful where I move. Um, can you believe it? Sun in Melbourne. Come on.
I can't believe it. Incoming summer. This is spring. This is what spring's meant to be.
Exactly. So yeah, it's so thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I know sometimes it feels a little like awkward to get on, and I've basically said to Bryony, hey, I want you to share as authentically as you can. And let's start with that. How and why you decided to do the Simpler Health protocol.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically what I generally noticed was I was feeling a bit sluggish, a bit down. All my clothes were getting a bit tighter. I was, unsure of what to eat. I was just making up as I was going along. I was getting a lot of Uber Eats just to save my time. I was like lack of motivation to go to the gym, all that kind of stuff, just lack of motivation in general. And I started to sort of feel that effect on my body. So I thought, I saw your progress, Em, on Facebook, and you had such like good reviews and how it just made you feel better. And I was like, that's what I want in my life. Like, I want to feel better and feel more motivated and just feel healthier. And so that's generally why I undertook it. And also just to fit into my clothes again. Like, I'm not going to go out and buy a whole new wardrobe. Like,
That
kind
was
of.
that was the reason why I did Simpler Health the first time around as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I've got perfectly good clothes there. I'm not just gonna, I'm gonna get back into them.
Yeah. Oh my God. I had an entire wardrobe. Like I literally at my parents' place back in Sydney a few years ago when I first started doing Simpler Health myself, I had an extra half of a wardrobe installed because I had so many clothes. So there was no way that I was letting all those clothes go to waste.
And they're good clothes. I mean, like I've spent a lot of money on them, so.
Exactly. So yeah, I think that's really, what's fascinating in that, Bri, is it took me like 2 years to feel comfortable sharing with people that I had even gained weight in the first place.
Yeah,
Like,
well, I think it took me a minute to sort of notice it really effectively. So I'd kind of wake up in the morning and I'd be like, okay, it's actually not as bad as I thought it was, or it's not that bad. And then I'd put on my clothes and like, oh, it's a little bit tight, but I didn't quite understand sort of how the much of the effects it was until I started the program, and then I was putting on my clothes and I was like, yeah, this isn't right. This is not what I used to look like. So I knew I wanted to change, but I didn't realize how, drastic it would be and how, far I had to go.
yeah. So, okay, tell us how much weight did you lose and in what duration of time?
Yeah, so I ended up losing 10 kilos, which I thought was nuts because I was joining this program thinking I only needed to lose 5 or something. And then I ended up, I think I started at 70 and I went down to 60. And yeah, I think it was over an 8-week period.
Yeah. Unreal.
Losing that.
And
So it was, yeah, insane. Just every time I was wondering, I'm like, I don't think it worked this week, and then I do my check-in and I'd lost another kilo. And it was really like those check-ins that kept me going. So like every week I'd be like, oh, this is pretty tough. I don't know if it's actually working. And then you go for your check-in, you're like, oh, there's another kilo down. I've already lost 5 kilos in like, 3 weeks.
yeah, I remember before you even started. So Bryony came over to my house and she said, because we conveniently lived around the corner from each other, basically, she said, I think I want to do Simpler Health. And I said, are you sure? Because even I was like, no, you don't. Like I said to Bryony, I said, you lose a kilo a week. Like, are you sure that you want to do that? I don't think that you need to get that much slimmer. And then, like, yeah, 10 kilos down. And we were like, amazing.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, I guess just the way that my body stores it, it's not in a completely noticeable way. I think like for me personally, it was a bit like my stomach is secondary, but like my legs started the first time. So like it wasn't, completely noticeable by everyone until like we did the measurements and you could actually see like where it was coming off.
Yeah. And so I think what is so interesting about your journey is not only that, I guess, we could make that impact on your things like your lethargy and things like that. The weight loss came with it, but you're vegetarian. And it
Absolutely.
is, and it's an adequate protein, like probably the biggest emphasis, and what I harp on about all the time is the necessity for protein, which, as a vegetarian or a vegan, I was vegan for a year myself. Um, that is such a difficult concept to properly grasp, to find,
Mm.
those vegetarian options for protein. So how did you find that? How did you find navigating that?
Yeah, well, I mean, it wasn't until I started the program that I really realized the importance of it. So, like, my meals was basically consisted of like, some kind of toast for breakfast, and then I would have just a salad for lunch, and then maybe like vegetables, rice, noodles, and stuff like that. Or I'd have like noodles for lunch as well, and like no protein source in there at all. So, really, yeah, moving to simple health, like when I had like the protein shake for breakfast, a protein shake for lunch, and then like the tofu and eggs, it really, like, I could see a difference. Like, it was a little bit tricky with just the tofu and eggs, but honestly, once I got into a rhythm, like, I think anyone going through this will realize that when you start, you make some really interesting, like, interesting meals that don't quite work. But then when you finally figure out what works, and I finally got it into a good place where I could like mix it up and like, do my tofu different ways and how I was eating it. And yeah, I've still just incorporated that today. Like, so I basically make sure that I have like, my tofu, which I actually really find is quite delicious in, in my lunch and dinner, and then eggs for breakfast as well, which is just like, yeah, life changing.
Life changing. I know. Isn't it like one of the questions I was going to ask you was what was the biggest thing that you learned? But I think it's honestly that.
I think it is, yeah. So the biggest, I think it also just learning, I mean, like before this, I was having like these really heavy like lunches as well. And I'd skip breakfast, like I just wouldn't have breakfast. And then, I'd have, yeah, huge lunches, huge dinners, and I'd snack throughout the day.
Mm.
And again, zero protein. So yeah, the biggest thing that I learned, like, and once I did have a protein breakfast, I was like, oh, I'm actually really full. Like, how am I gonna, eat lunch? And then you'd eat the lunch and it wouldn't be as big as it was, and it would have that protein in it, which then would keep me to dinner, and so I wouldn't have to snack so often. And so, yeah, it just kind of all falls into place.
Yeah. Isn't it? It's one of those things where you kind of have to like trust the process. It probably, did you find, and I guess I've never really even spoken to you about this, but did you find it was easier to trust because you knew me?
I think so. I think it was easier to trust basically because I'd seen the results on someone that I knew. So
Yeah.
it was like, because every company ever has like before and after photos, and how many of them are real, how many of them are just altered, or like they've done something else,
My
like,
God, with AI these days, you could do whatever.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you see all those like infomercials on TV as well. And it's kind of like a bit of an information overload on there. So, like, I do need to rely on someone to tell me what to do because, like I was saying, I had no idea. Like, I thought I was eating fine beforehand because I'm like, oh, look, I'm having salad, I'm having veggies, but obviously missing that protein content. And so, like, actually seeing like your real life results, I was like, oh, it, absolutely does work. Someone that I know, someone that I trust. And, I was like, all right, ready to jump in and tell me something that I don't know and help
Yeah.
me.
I so admired your ability to just get on with it and do it. Like, honestly, it blew my mind. I didn't know what to expect because I guess for me, when I first started the Simple Health Protocol the first time around when I was in Sydney, it was like I was like at a point of desperation. And so I learned a lot from working with you, where I kind of thought that if you were not like incredibly desperate, that it was going to be really hard to do. And you like really showed me that no, you just sort of knuckle down. It gives you something predictable to do every day.
Mhm.
All that time, my impression was that the only thing missing for you was that understanding and that education piece around, all right, what am I just missing? Because you're right, essentially, you generally, and what I find with most people, and I'm sure that you would probably look at what people eat now,
Yeah.
most people don't they just don't have that understanding, that level of education,
Mhm.
right? And how are you supposed to do something if you don't know about it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just like there's so much information based on like what your level of of activities as well. So like being like, oh, well, you need to eat really carb heavy or you need to eat these really big meals. But that's for people who are like, at the gym like 4 or 5 times a week. And so it's like, how do I find something that works for like my level and where I am in my everyday work? Because I work a 9 to 5 job. So, I'm not always completely active. And so, I need to figure out what works for me.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, same thing, mine fluctuated. My diet
Mm,
fluctuated depending on what I was doing. Obviously, when I went back
yeah.
to gymnastics, I increased my carbohydrates load.
Yeah.
It was more, I was actually just sharing with someone else before. I now had an understanding that you are fueling for performance. You're not just eating
Mhm.
because you're hungry or because it's yummy. It's like a very different way of viewing food.
Yeah. I will say that went out the window and I just went to Bali. I was like,
Talk
I'm
about
on
that. Like,
holiday.
yeah, talk about that because I think one thing that we do advocate at Simple Health is that it's not about being on a diet forever. It's about being
Mm,
responsible for your health. And we, at Simple Health, you equip people with the tools, educated, for them to understand what they're going to do moving forward,
mm,
right? But that doesn't mean you be perfect all the time, right? Like I'm definitely
mm.
not perfect all the time. So how did you handle Bali? How are you going to handle it now that you're back? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so look, I knew going into it, I was just like, look, this is a holiday. I'm here, to enjoy myself, while I will still be, somewhat responsible and I'll try and get my protein sources in. I'm also here to experience culture in the food. So, I kind of took it on that aspect as well. And I mean, like it's like Asian countries are really good at doing tofu like perfectly as well. So that was, it wasn't the worst thing. It was actually pretty good. But yeah, it was mainly just like, if I'm responsible the rest of the time, it doesn't matter if you just have like, a small lapse in what you're doing. Not even a lapse, just like, I guess like an allowance. Like I know I'm understanding I'm eating this. And so I'll, sort it out when I get home. And I've been eating responsibly beforehand. So, it's not like I'm going to gain back 10 kilos in, one trip. Like that was a month-long process of me gaining weight. So I wasn't too like scared about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the really powerful part is you kind of learn how to trust yourself again because
Mm.
when you feel like your body or I know for me when I felt like my body was doing things without my consent. It was like, why are you getting eczema? Why are you getting like gaining weight? Like I'm not giving you permission for these things. What's going
Yeah.
on? You almost lose that level of trust with your body and with yourself. And I know that I got really scared at first when I finished protocol. When I finished the first phases of protocol, I got kind of scared of carbohydrates because I didn't trust myself to not
Yeah.
gain weight, right? So I love hearing that you are in control.
Yeah, I think, like you said, again, it just comes back down to that knowledge, right? So just understanding that, you don't have to be perfect every day, but I am doing the majority of it right. Like if I'm like, if I've had a fantastic week, we're having one cookie, I'm not going to gain 10 kilos back. It's just like, and my lifestyle has changed as well. Like I can go back to the gym now, I'm not on protocol and stuff like that. So it's just, yeah, kind of taking it all into consideration and just knowing. So yeah, just having that information was just invaluable, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so now you're obviously still vegetarian. If I was
Yes.
to ask you, uh, I guess, what do you think was the reason why, or what do you think was the driving factor behind where you got yourself in the position before you started Simpler Health? Do you think it was just like a multitude of things over time? Like, were you shocked to find that, oh, I need to lose 10 kilos? Like,
Yeah, so I guess it was a bit of a shock knowing that it was that much weight. But I think like what happened was, like I said before, I was, sort of just eating the wrong food. I was snacking all the time and I was going to gym with the purpose of trying to burn off of what I've just eaten,
right.
which is obviously the wrong reason. And then going there, I'd feel very unmotivated and I just like wouldn't enjoy myself because I wasn't really there for the right reasons. And then it made me want to go less and less, which made me less motivated. So I was eating more and not working out. And I think that's what kind of led me here as well. And even just like the wrong information. So like, because I was going to gym and everyone's like, well, you need to eat way more, like eat way, way more. You need to have bigger lunches, you need to have all this stuff. So I was eating more and more, but then going to the gym less and less. And then my body sort of got used to that routine. And, I just sort of fell into that routine and, it just, yeah, led me there.
Yeah, crazy. Like, it's just so, I think that's what I loved so much about Simple Health was it was A, simple, B,
Mm,
predictable, right? And
yeah.
and also if someone was standing there the whole way through supporting you,
Mm,
being like, no, you've got this, is sort of your accountability manager every week, like you said. And there was nothing that I know that when I started learning about, okay, let's say protein, for example, it made
mm,
perfect sense. Like it just made sense, right? Like I remember when I
yeah.
said to you, I was like, Bri, you need to get more protein because naturally as a vegetarian, you're likely eating less of it. And you were like,
Mm.
oh, sure. Like, you didn't think about that, like why would you think about that?
Yeah, like, and even just seeing, like, I think because you broke down the numbers for me as well about how much protein I needed versus how much I was actually eating versus how much was in the food like I was eating. So I just assumed because you hear like, oh, well, like beans are a great source of protein. And so, but when we broke it down and how much you would have to actually eat to get the level of protein that I needed, I wasn't anywhere near that.
Yeah.
Or, I wasn't going to hit that in a day. So while I thought potentially I was sort of getting enough protein by putting lentils on my salad, it just like was not enough.
Yeah. Do you still okay, well for context now, how long's it been since we've worked together? Maybe like 8 months.
Yeah, I probably came off in January. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
Oh my
think.
gosh. Wow. So obviously now Bryney and I hang out just on social means only, no more work. But so do you still use the protein shakes? Like, how do you ensure as a vegetarian that you're getting adequate protein every day?
Yeah, so I still use a protein shake. So I find that I love to go to the gym in the morning. So I'll have like a protein shake before I go to gym and then come back and have like eggs for breakfast.
Yeah.
I say like, and I've integrated like tofu into, my lunch and dinner. So
Yeah.
that's just I'm trying to tick those boxes, it's just like I need a protein source for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I can't, just be like, oh yeah, I'll just have that random one salad with, just spinach and tomato in it. So that's really sort of like a big takeaway for me and how I ensure I'm getting into it. I also like to have a protein shake, like if I do work out in the afternoons, like afterwards as well, just to sort of keep my body, fueled.
Yeah. Um, absolutely. I love that. Like this makes me so happy to hear because I guess, I felt really vulnerable when I shared my sort of like a story with Simpler Health and how I found Simpler Health. Because like I said to you, it was like embarrassing for me coming from a quite a judgmental background in gymnastics.
Mm,
I'd gained weight. Now, I mean, it was about a lot more than that. Yeah, like I shared with you, my hormones were all out of whack. I'd lost my period for 2 years. There were so
mm,
many more contributing factors to what made me need to get my health under control. But I think it was so special for me that through that really terrifying experience of do I post not or do I not post, should I or shouldn't I, that's what created the possibility for you and for you to be able to experience a transformation in your health. So it makes me so happy that came to fruition from that, you
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, oh, that's such a lovely feeling.
Yeah, no, I mean, it did make a big difference because, like, I just seeing someone that has gone through it, and as well, because I wanted to do something about it, and that was again my solution was going to the gym more to burn off the food that I was eating, and then feeling miserable about it. But then, yeah, seeing your experience is kind of like, okay, yes, it is like it's possible. This is the way to go. It can happen for me. I think it's also just seeing like I feel like a lot of programs and everything are really tailored towards people who are like quite overweight as well. And so you feel like, oh well, this isn't for me because I don't need to lose, like 40 kilos or something like that. This isn't gonna work, or I'm not the target demographic. But then seeing like it is just about getting like your health back and making those changes and getting that information. was also just like, okay, like I can come in and lose like 10 kilos, and that's, that's fine, that's acceptable. It doesn't make my journey any less, important than someone else's.
Yeah, absolutely. And it opens up the possibility for someone who is potentially more unwell, let's say,
Mm,
than yourself, to recognize that, oh, hey, actually something can be done, you know?
mm,
I think that's really powerful. All right, last like question, I guess I could say, is what advice would you give to if we specifically say no, let's just say anyone in general, whether they're vegetarian, vegan, paleo, whatever. What
yeah.
advice do you give to someone if they're dealing with some health problems, but they like don't know what to do about it, or they don't have the courage right now to step up? How would you get the courage to do something about your health?
I think it's just I'm trying to think, like, it's just, you just gotta like accept it. I know it's like, what it is. It's just like having the confidence to tell yourself, like, this is not where I want to be, and just being comfortable enough to do that. So, it did, like I said, it did take me a while being like, okay, no, it's not that bad. Like, it's fine, it's fine. And then one day being like, okay, no, I'm serious about this. I really want to do something about it. And once you make that decision, I feel like you can do anything. And so, and you might think, "Oh, I'm vegan, vegetarian, it's harder, it's not going to work for me." Like, it can be hard. Like, I think no matter what it is, it's going to be, a change and a difference. But, it's just about like having that determination and feeling like, yep, and I'm worth doing this and I'm going to do this for myself.
Yeah, I think it's almost like an act of self-love, right? Like if you're going through every day tired or needing like a nap, there's something
Exactly.
there that you need to do something about.
Yeah. That was something that I noticed, like, so yeah, when we got to work from home through COVID, I would literally, without a doubt, on my lunch break, have a 20-minute nap, like every day. Like, honestly, because I get an hour for lunch, so I'm like, okay, I can quickly have some lunch and have a nap. And I would do that. And then now, I'm like, oh, I don't need to nap during the day. Like,
Wow.
feels better.
Wow. That is huge. I reckon that's because you now have breakfast.
Yeah, that's totally true. I just thought it was normal. Like, I was never a big breakfast eater in high school, at all. It was never really a big thing for me, but obviously my body's changed, like I'm 30 now. I don't have I don't have the body of a teenager anymore and the energy levels. So like I kind of just kept that routine. It's like, well, it's worked for me all this time. Like, what's changed? It's like my body has changed. Just getting
Yeah, my
older.
being has changed. I'm a different person.
Yeah.
No, I love that so much. Yeah, it really is about I really like that you said to own it. That's
Mm,
that's something that I think takes a lot of courage to be able to do that. It's almost like holding yourself accountable to, all right, well, I'm the one that's in this situation. I'm the only
mm,
one that can get myself out of it. Um,
yeah.
oh my gosh, Bryney, thank you so much for letting me be a part of that and supporting you through that as well. Like it meant a lot more to me than what I can imagine you would understand. Like it really means a lot. So thank you. And thanks for coming on and sharing a bit about your story. Is there anything that you want to say before we close off?
Yeah, I mean, just also, I was just thinking about it then when you were saying like to own it. I think one of the big things I had, like my first strategy was like, oh, when I'm on it, like I don't want to seem like a party pooper, so I really won't tell anyone that I'm on it, and I'll
Yeah.
just like kind of coast through. But then I found once I like explained it to my friends what I was doing and like what it meant and the restrictions, like everyone was so accepting and like, oh yeah, good on, like go on, if there's anything we can do to help, like so proud of you, kind of thing. So it's like, and then you get that positive reinforcement. You're like, okay, yeah, no, like this isn't just something that, I'm going through. Like everyone's here to support me, and it makes it a lot easier as well. So
Yeah.
I think, yeah, just diving in completely and then just being completely open about it and open to it, even just, I thought, especially the no alcohol, I was like, I'm going to be such a downer at events. And then every time I told someone, they were just like, oh, that's so good. Like, well done, like, and
Yeah.
they'd shout me a, Coke Zero or something like that.
Yeah. No, how funny. Like, I remember even because I know your partner Phil quite well, and
Mhm.
I remember thinking, like this went through my mind. Oh my God, I'm really worried that like Phil and everyone that you're around is going to blame me for you not participating in things, right? Like even for me, having done it myself and telling people like, no, it's great, it's amazing. I was having these thoughts as well. So when you came to
Mhm.
me and you told me like, no, oh, like feels like super supportive, blah, blah, I was like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I think like, you have those fears and they are like your own fears, like, justified or not, but like you sit there and like, oh, this is what's going to happen, this is going to happen. But these people are around you to support you. So, like when I said I was doing it, Phil's like, yeah, do it, get it done. And I'm like, oh, it means I can't drink. And he's like, we'll just stick with it. Like, that means you don't do it. Like, we don't need alcohol. Like, alcohol is such a big part of our society, but you don't need it to have a good time.
Yeah.
So I still went to like music festivals and I wasn't drinking, and I had my little meal beforehand, and then I brought in my protein bar as a little snack. Got it through security, and like it was completely fine, and like I still had like such a good time. And you know what, I drank so many sparkling waters. I was so hydrated. And it's so
So I was so hydrated on protocol.
I know. And so like especially when you go to events, like I'd take like the little sparkling waters in a can, and I'd feel like I was still like contributing and having a good time. And I was having a great time. And the best thing is I got to go in my car afterwards and then go home.
Oh my God, isn't that the best? You can drive to and
Yeah.
from like events. Oh my God. I love that so much. Yeah, that is that's like a missing, it's a little gem of information, that
Mm.
one, because even because I know how much within our social community, alcohol is a big part of it. Yeah,
Mm.
that was a fear for me too. I thought to myself, I was like, oh, I'm really nervous. People are gonna like blame me for the reason why
Yeah.
I'm not drinking at social events. Everyone was so accepting. But I think also the reason why everyone was so accepting was because of how you shared what you were doing. Like you
Mm.
straight off the bat were like, there's something that I want to improve about myself.
Mhm.
It's my choice. This is something that I'm doing because I basically, you had that, I'm doing this because I love myself way about you, that can, no one can stuff with that. You know what I mean? Like no one can give you a, that's ridiculous when you're
Yeah.
standing out here being like, no, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that to be fair, like, and to be open, the first week was the hardest. I
Yeah.
was sitting there just being like, one of my friends actually threw a vegan barbecue, and I was looking at all this vegan stuff that, I couldn't have. And I was just like, what have I done? What have I done? Like, I'm like, and I'm in this for weeks now. And then looking at the results that I got was just like, this is why I'm doing it for myself. And like, look what I'm doing. And because I've stuck to it, like, look how proud I am of myself. So it's like, every kind of challenge that got thrown at me, like, someone who didn't know I was on it would offer me a drink or something, and I'd say no, and I'd just be like, I'm really proud of myself.
Yeah.
Like I did that, or I got through that event, without breaking protocol, or, and I was just like, it's just, you wake up the next day just being like, I am so proud of myself.
Oh,
Like,
I love
look
that.
at that.
Oh my God. That is so special. That gave me goosebumps. I love that.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's really empowering standing up for yourself, you know?
It is like, and some people like, that maybe you don't know very well would be like, oh, come on, just like have a drink. Like no one in our circle or my friendship group ever did that. But, when you meet people out random, they're like, oh, go on, it's just one drink. And you're like, no, 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 it's not though.
Yeah.
Like it's about, sticking to it and, having those reasons that it's for me and for my health.
Yeah. Oh, Briny, thank you. That's like, that is a little gem at the end there. I really appreciate it. And you're absolutely spot on. I'd almost forgotten that about my experiences through the protocol. You're right. It's so empowering and special, and and it's good to pass that along. I think also because your friend ended up doing Simpler Health as well because she just saw how inspired you were, you know.
Yeah, like I didn't do the Facebook post, but every time I saw one of my friends, because I'd be off it, I'd be like, oh, look, here's the photos of my difference. Like, I'd show everyone. I'd be like, this is
Yeah,
what happened to me.
I love that so much. All right. Well, thank you, Bryony, so much for sharing so openly and being so happy to tell people about your experience. Yeah, far out. What a little flow-on effect, a little train. Hopefully,
Yeah.
someone out there is dealing with something similar, and we can all make a difference to that person.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to say thank you to you because Emma was my coach during it and was getting messages at all random hours being like, is this the right seasoning? Can I have this? Like, what about this one? Like, is this right? Am I like, have I done it wrong? Like,
And I was like, no, you're fine.
Yeah, I think the best one was like I'd literally be in the supermarket like taking photos of stuff, being like, this one, like what's this?
You know, in hindsight, we could have just gone to Woolies together because we lived so close anyway.
You're right. That probably would have made more sense, and it wouldn't have like made you be on your phone 24/7. But I appreciate the effort. Thank you.
I'll be claiming some tax on my phone bill, don't worry.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, do it.
Oh, all right, Brian, thanks heaps. And I will see you on Saturday because we're
Yes,
going out together for a party.
absolutely.
All
Go
right,
weather.
love.
Weather as well.
All right, see you, Brian. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Bye.
Bye.